And welcome back to another episode of Double Dunk Podcast. My name is Brenden and Eric. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're talking the divisional round of the playoffs. 4 games to talk about, 8 teams left. Mr. Eric Warrensy's with me. Warrensy, how we doing?
Good, man. Good. Really pumped for this weekend. To call it what it is, wild card weekend kind of sucked.
Yeah. What do you know what I saw like a graphic of the old seeding with like the 2 teams getting the buys and you have the games. It just looks so much cleaner than like the 7 seed. I don't know. I felt like, I miss the good old days of this like 6 teams in each conference getting in? Because I think the 7 seeds now are 1-10. I believe the Packers last year against the Cowboys were the only team that's won, right? In the format, yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen too much talk online though about maybe even getting rid of the divisions. I really dislike that.
Absolutely not. If you want to win your fucking division, like like that. If you want to make the playoffs, beat the 3 teams that you play the most. It takes away all the.
I'm somewhat open though to if you win your division, maybe you aren't guaranteed a home playoff game. Maybe, I don't know. I'm open to that discussion. But you have to have divisions in football, and you have to play those 3 teams twice. It wouldn't be football without it.
But the Rams were clearly the better team than Minnesota all season. I was called Minnesota frauds on this podcast week in, week out. Like they were the 14-3 seed. Did they deserve a home game over Los Angeles? Like, you know, that's what
the Vikings lost to 2 teams this season.
Yeah, but like the NFC North was built up on playing the AFC South all season. Like they beat up on that division. Like a lot of their records, except for your Bears, the Packers and Vikings were kind of tossed up by those playing the Jags and the Titans and that crappy division.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
All right. Well, why don't we talk about the 8 teams left? 4 games remaining. We're going to start on Saturday. Mr. Warrensy, the Houston Texans, your Houston Texans now are on the road to take on the Chiefs. They're 8.5-point dogs. The Texans defense just dominates Justin Herbert. Herbert has his worst game of the season. If you look at EPA per play at a 250 playoff games, Justin Herbert would be 249th in that football game. The Texans caused chaos. CJ Stroud didn't have to do too much, but he did enough, and they roll. And Warrensy was all over that. Warrensy, what you got? The Texans' next game against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are coming off a 2-week bye, rest of their starters. They got to chill at home last week. Patrick Mahomes has his 3rd kid. You know, it's all fine and gravy in Kansas City Chiefs land right now.
Yeah, rest versus rust. I believe it will be 25 days since Patrick Mahomes has played a meaningful snap. So rest versus rust. What side are you on? You mentioned the bye. It's actually a double bye. So, yeah, does Andy Reid's 19-11 against the spread record after the bye? Should there even be a little asterisk there because he's got 2 weeks to prepare? Maybe. I don't know. But last week, I loved the Texans. I thought that was the bingo free space on the card last week. It just did not make sense to me that the Texans were 3-point underdogs. Was I a little nervous at the beginning? Yes. But the right side came out, and it was because of this Houston Texans defense. And I'm going to go to the exact same matchup I circled last week. I thought if the edge rushers of the Texans could get pressure, they would have a chance. How do you stop this Chiefs offense? I think this is really their only weakness on this entire roster is their tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Can Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter get consistent pressure? It might not result in sacks because Patrick Mahomes is on pace to be the best quarterback at avoiding pressures and avoiding sacks off of pressures, excuse me. So
yeah, like he's taken the most sacks in his career this season, but he's also has his best pressure to sack rate of his career.
Yeah, that's how many pressures he's been giving up because the tackle play has just been piss poor. Juwan Taylor has not worked at left tackle whatsoever. Are they starting the rookie at right tackle again, or are they going back to?
I think Joe Thuney's going to start there. I believe.
Thuney, or
I think they're kicking him out.
They signed Humphreys, right?
Yeah, DJ Humphreys is battling a hamstring injury, and then Kingsley Suamataia has been an absolute turnstile there. I think it's Joe Thuney. They kicked him out to tackle in that Steelers game, right, on Christmas Day, and then it sounds like that's what they're going to roll with again.
I find that risky. He's an all-pro guard. I believe he was first team again. So you're taking and the combo of Creed Humphrey, he was first team all-pro center this year. So you're taking that first team all-pro combo on the inside and maybe weakening your inside just to get that tackle, the right tackle fix, which that's Will Anderson. I mean, I had a really hot take at the draft. I said he was going to be a good player. Sure, living up to the hype.
Six pressures and 1.5 sacks last week. He caused ruckus on that Chargers O-line.
I can't wait to bet him Defensive Player of the Year next year. I think the sky's the limit for him. I called him a generational talent at that draft. I think he lives up to that hype. But that's the matchup I'm watching on this side of the ball. Can Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson win at the line of scrimmage? Because that's the only way they're going to have a chance.
Mm-hmm. So these two teams played not too long ago, like weeks ago, less than a month ago. I think it was
sorry, before you get into it, do you remember what the spread in that game was?
3.5, right? Or was it 3.5?
Yeah. I think it closed actually at 3.
The Chiefs were my lock, or the Chiefs were a lock for me that week on the show. I remember it.
Yeah, and I mean, wasn't that long ago. It was a month ago, and now it's 8.5.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that game, like when I was looking at the box score, I'm going, okay, Mahomes threw for 260, a touchdown. He had an 87 quarterback rating. He spread the ball out well, and then when you dive into like the analytical stats, like the Chiefs only had a 41% offensive success rate in that game. It was kind of a slow moving build for the Chiefs offense. Like it wasn't 27 points. Like they struggled. The Texans defense did play well in that game. It was just the Texans offense was terrible. Like CJ Stroud had one of his worst games of the season that week. They couldn't build any momentum. Like it was there for the taking if the Texans offense stepped up.
Yeah, it was. On the other side of the ball, talking about CJ Stroud, last week, the reason I really liked the Texans was because I thought that their run game could get him into third and short. I don't know if that's going to be the case this week. This Chiefs run defense is ranked 10th against the rush in terms of EPA per play. So maybe those second and, I thought last week it was going to be 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 2. This week it's probably going to be 2nd and 8, 3rd and 5. I'm nowhere near as confident in the Texans as I was last week. Obviously, they're going up against the Chiefs in this situation, but it's going to come down to CJ Stroud. Last year in the playoffs, week 1, he balled out, had arguably his best game as a pro. They went into Baltimore the week after and laid an egg. They got their butt whooped 34-10. So it's going to be a big game for CJ Stroud to see if he can bounce back. And I'm circling D'Amico Ryans here too. This is a huge game for him. He got his butt whooped last year by Harbaugh in this spot. Now he's going up against another upper echelon coach in Andy Reid. D'Amico Ryans has got to come up with something here, and Bobby Slowick as well.
We love a Bobby Slowick on the show. I want to flip over to the other side of the ball quickly before I talk about Stroud. A couple more interesting things I saw from that Texans-Chargers game. The Texans played bare front, so that's a 5-man front on 32% of the snaps in that game against the Chargers. So just 5 defensive linemen attacking your offense, trying to get one-on-ones with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and it worked. Like that was the most that they've played a bare front under D'Amico Ryans as a Texans head coach. So they clearly saw something against that Chargers O-line. We're like, okay, we're just going to try to get one-on-ones across the board. I think they're going to do the exact same thing here. Like obviously it worked last week, and the reason why I think they could do it this week is because they're not scared of anyone on the Chiefs on the outside. Like there's not a wide receiver that you're terrified of. There's like Xavier. If you go back to that game, Xavier Worthy led the Chiefs in targets with 11. Worthy had 11 targets against the Texans. He led the team in receiving yards, 7 catches for 65 yards. That was also Hollywood Brown's first game with the Chiefs coming back, or not coming back, just his first game because he never played in the regular season after having that shoulder injury in preseason. And Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter are up to the task. If you just look how good they've been, they've allowed the lowest and second lowest completion percentage among defenders with at least 50 targets this season. This is probably arguably the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Kamari Lassiter is becoming one of my favorite players in the league. It's not a Philadelphia
Eagle.
Dog. He's fun, man. He's a dog. And I texted to you during that game, like he's like taking the stigma away from like the 4.6 40 at a cornerback because he doesn't look slow on the field, but he obviously lost money and lost draft stock at the combine. And he's played so well. So I expect him to be aggressive. I expect him to play a ton of man coverage. I expect him to play a lot of bare fronts and try to get after Patrick Mahomes. And I think it's going to be a similar recipe because kind of similar teams a little bit. Good quarterback, not a lot on the outside, right? Like Chargers Chiefs. Like if that makes sense a little bit, like there's not anyone you're really scared of.
That bear front is a really good point, because I think a big reason and why they were able to do that was D'Amico Autry being healthy again. He's really versatile. You can play him outside or inside. So yeah, I would expect the exact same thing again.
So on the Texans offense side of the ball, quick, the Chiefs defense, Chris Jones obviously going to get a ton of attention. He's their best pass rusher. The Chiefs pass rush is about league average, but like CJ Stroud's taking the second most sacks out of any quarterback in the league, fourth highest pressure rate, the Texans offensive line. Steve Spagnuolo's defense scares me against this Texans offense. Like you said, I don't know if they're going to be in and be able to get in 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5s. I'm with you. I think this could be a tough day for the Texans offense.
Yeah. And the Chiefs have been excellent versus number 1 wide receivers this year. You can look at Trent McDuffie for that reason. He was an all-pro snub, I believe. I don't think he made all-pro this year, I don't think he's been named all-pro either of his first 2 years.
Because he doesn't get interceptions. I think he had a couple this year, but like
nobody
I think he had his first career. Yeah. Do you know that he follows wide receiver ones around the second most of any quarterback in the NFL this year? So like you said, like they just stick him on the top guy.
I think it's a really hard matchup for Nico Collins that way. But on the other hand, the Chiefs have been a little bit susceptible this year to wide receiver 2s and tight ends. So
who's wide receiver 2 on the Texans right now, though? Like you look at that box score, Tank Dell led the team in receiving yards against the Chiefs. That was the game,
and he only played a quarter and a half.
Yeah, so that like I don't know where the production's coming from. They really struggled to get the ball to anyone outside of Nico Collins, except for Xavier Hutchinson. This is another thing we see just shout. He's gonna have to make plays with his legs and move around, because that changed the game. That fumbled snap, rolling to the right and throwing the ball across the middle to Xavier Hutchinson, flipped the game upside down last week. Like they're going to need those explosive chunk plays from somewhere, and it's going to be up to Stroud making plays happen.
Yeah, and it's actually really ironic that you brought up who is wide receiver 2, because for my prop, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you, because Mechie's line is 33.5 and Robert Woods is sitting at 19.5. And
I don't think Robert Woods is practicing right now. I think he's missed.
So it might have just answered my question.
Mechie had 8 targets last week. Like he technically was the de facto wide receiver 2, but he struggled with only 4 catches for like 28 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
Canadian boy. We love a Mechie.
We love Mechie.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I actually think my prop, I think I'm actually going to go Schultz yards, 34.5. He's kind of the safety blanket, and like we mentioned, if they are in 3rd and long lot, they're going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. I was looking at CJ Stroud over 30 pass attempts as well. But so if Vegas is saying he's going to throw the ball around 30 times, Schultz safety blanket on that 3rd down, I think he gets over 34.5. So I'll lock in Schultz as my prop.
Low number. Like any Texans guy outside of Nico Collins is kind of good value right now.
I agree.
Yards. Okay, you got your prop in. Let's get your pick. Spreads 8.5, totals 41.5. So expecting a low total. Are you going back to your Texans, Wardsy?
I am going back to my Texans, and Chiefs have only won by more than 8 this year 3 times. One was against the Browns. One was against the Saints in a game. That was the game Derek Carr first got injured, so he didn't even finish the game. And the third one was against the 49ers when they had a million injuries. That game was a major, major blowout. So I just think asking the Chiefs to cover by margin right now, I'm still fading. I know that was an early season trend, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to take the 8.5. I know I'm going against Andy Reid off a bye, which is normally you and I's bread and butter. We attack that every year, but give me the Texans plus 8.5.
Yeah, this was the hardest game for me. 8.5 is a lot of points. Do you know what Patrick Mahomes' numbers are in the divisional round of the playoffs? Can I read these to you?
Yeah.
He's 6-0. He has 1,642 passing yards. That's an average of 302 per game. 16 touchdowns, no interceptions, with a completion percentage of 70. Perfect. This is his week of the calendar. I wanted to go Texans. I think the Chiefs roll, man. I think they blow out the Texans. I'm going back. Like, I can't get over how bad the Texans offense was all season. Last week, they had the 2nd worst offensive success rate of any offense outside actually 3rd worst outside the Broncos and the Eagles last week. And I can't back this offense without Tank
Yeah.
Dell, without the guys. I think Steve Spagnuolo is a day. Mahomes rolls. I think Vegas is really emphasizing the Mahomes factor in this spread, if that makes sense. Like, I think like this list screams like a 5.5, 6.5, and they're even boosting it up. But I'm going to follow suit. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I hate taking a big spread like this, but I don't know. I'm not there with the Texans.
Well, I mean,
yet.
if you look at the Texans game last week, the way it started, their defense saved their ass because they forced 2 field goals at the beginning of that game, and it was 6-0. That's Mahomes, and it's 14-0. Mm-hmm. Good night.
Yeah. My prop's going to be greasy as hell. CJ Stroud over 14.5 rushing yards. He ran for 42 last week. He ran for 23 in the game they played a few weeks ago. He's moving around a lot more. 14.5 is a really low number. He has to break one. I couldn't find many props I liked at all, but I'll go with the quarterback rushing yards. All right, Warrensy. Move on to the night game on Saturday. The Washington Commanders are on the road, take on the Detroit Lions. The other total was 41.5. This one is 55.5.
Yep.
I don't know if you've taken a look at the touchdown odds for this game, but as a former touchdown prop aficionado, and I used to write about it for money, this makes me like just sick to my stomach. 6 guys with under plus 200 odds. You got Jahmyr Gibbs at minus 240 to score a touchdown. Oh my God. This game's sick. It's sickening to me if you want to bet touchdown props. Anyways, that was actually, there's 7 of them under plus 200. That was my first thought. I'll throw it to you, Warren. You got anything?
Yeah. So all week I was liking the Commanders. I think it was probably also mostly because we just watched them win a game, right? You watch a team win a game, and you kind of buy into them. You buy some stock. You're like, hey, they look good. I could see they could put up a fight. Then I really dug into this matchup, and the Lions aren't punting in this game. And I know Dan Campbell goes for it a lot on 4th down, but
so
there's just green lights all over the field for this Lions offense. You brought up Gibbs touchdown odds. The Washington Commanders clearly have the worst rush defense of any playoff team remaining. It was bottom 3 most of this season. Now you're getting a rested Lions O-line. They're going to just control the trenches here.
And something I caught here, so this is according to Next Gen Stats, the way the Lions run against the way the Commanders defend the run it's a perfect matchup for the Lions. So under center runs, the Lions had 56 explosive plays under center runs. That was 22 more than the next team, which is an insane stat. The Commanders give up the highest explosive run rate under center runs in the NFL and the second highest success rate on those runs. So like this just like Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell are looking at those stats going like licking their chops. And David Montgomery's back. Well, we should add that in too. Like he's playing in this game.
I was looking at his prop number. I was just trying to find a prop for this game, and I saw Montgomery listed, and that caught me off guard. I assumed he was out. I mean, I don't know how much they're going to use him in this game. Like, is it? He's got to be on a snap count.
He had a slightly torn MCL, and he's playing like a month later.
It's fishy to me.
At work, we're all talking.
I'd be wary
like,
of his props. Very wary. Montgomery's my guy. I'm wearing my Bears hat. Loved him as a Bear, so I'm never going to bet Montgomery unders, but I definitely wouldn't touch Montgomery overs this week. It could be 1 or 2 runs, and then he looks at the training staff and says, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And Jahmyr Gibbs is playing so well right now. Like,
so well.
He's become a workhorse. That was one of my biggest like gripes with him coming out of the draft is like I never thought he'd be able to run between the tackles in the NFL efficiently and become like a workhorse back. And he's just it's true. But like he's still just like he's exceeded my expectations coming out of Alabama by a mile.
Yeah, he's been absolutely unreal.
And one more thing I watched.
Also really sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
The Commanders also really struggle against slot receivers.
Yeah.
Guess who lines up in the slot the most for the Lions? Monroe St. Brown. The Commanders are middle of the pack against tight ends. Sam Laporta. It's just green light all over the place here. Like we saw Lattimore really struggle against Mike Evans last week. I don't know if he's going to stick to like a Jameson Williams or what that's going to be, but I don't think Lattimore at his age can stick with the speed of Williams. So it's really hard to narrow down Lions props for this game because there's too many. Like, the ball's got to go to some of these guys, but is there going to be enough offensive plays for them all to reach their yards?
Lions props are always hell on earth anyways with that team. So for the Commander side of things, let's throw some positivity on them right now. When I was going back to the Bucks Commanders game, something that blew my mind. Did you know the Bucks only had 7 offensive possessions in that game?
Yeah.
Like, that is, the average is like a 10 or 11. Like 7 is an insane number. And the Bucks punted on their first 2, and then they were able to score touchdown. They fumbled in a field goal. But like, the Commanders all game were so good at keeping the Bucks offense off the field. The Bucks still had a 52% success rate on offense, which is very good. But the Commanders were able to just like slow down the game, tighten it, keep the opposing quarterback off the field, keep it away from their game that they want to play. That's how you're gonna have to beat this Lions team. Like, very similar style. Like, and the thing was, when you go back and look, the Commanders had a negative 0.27 EPA on early down rushes. It was just Jaden Daniels bailing them out on third down. Like, it was every third down play, Jaden Daniels making something happen, and on fourth down. I really want to see Washington pass more on first down than in this game and put the ball in Jaden Daniels' hands more. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jaden Daniels has to be the best player on the field, and I believe he can be to win this game. Like, I believe there's a scenario here where Jaden Daniels has an incredible game, and he did against the Bucks. He's shown he can do it. He was 5th in EPA per play all season. Like, I'm confident in this kid heading into the Motor City in a playoff game.
We just talked about CJ Stroud and how last year in his first playoff game, he lit it up, and it was just a week of giving CJ Stroud flowers. And then he kind of laid an egg against the Ravens. But remember, that Ravens defense last year was first in EPA per play. They were off the charts.
Yeah. One of the best defenses in DVOA ever. This is kind of a nice
matchup for Jaden Daniels. The Lions historically under Aaron Glenn have struggled versus running quarterbacks. He plays a lot of man coverage. That means the defenders' backs are turned to him. He can run. I remember last year, a specific game against the Bears, Justin Fields ran for over 100 yards against this Lions defense. This year, though, the Lions, they really haven't played running quarterbacks yet. I looked it up. They played Kyler Murray early in the year. He ran only 5 times for 45 yards, though, so that's 9 yards a clip. And then they played Josh Allen, and he ran for 68 on 11 carries, so that's just under 7 yards a carry. So there's not a lot of sample size this year, but they still struggle against running quarterbacks. So yeah, don't run the ball with Brian Robinson. No. Run the ball with Jaden Daniels.
Everyone was talking about Cliff Kingsbury was like, he had a great call game. I was like, what? Yeah. I watched something different. Like, they set Daniels up for failure almost in that game, and he pulled that team out of 6 feet under. Like, I was so impressed with him. And the other thing is too, with the Lions defense, they really struggle against wide receivers. They allowed the most receiving yards. De'Ami Brown's quietly emerge for Washington right now. Like, on paper, this pass catching unit doesn't look great, but like, they've got enough weapons, I think, where they can attack this defense. I like the matchup for both sides here. I think was that you that said earlier, like, the total's at 55 and it's not high enough, or was something like that?
I remember when the Bills played the Lions, the total was, I think, 56. It was the highest of the season. So I didn't bet it. It just felt kind of too high. Like, that's a hard total to go over.
That came with
it was like it ended like 75 or something. Yeah, like, it flew over.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned the pace of play and how Washington really controlled the ball. They can't go shot for shot with the Lions here.
No.
They really need to slow this game down and try to keep the Lions offense on the bench. So I really don't have a good feel on this total, because if each team only gets 3 to 4 possessions a half, that's a tough total to cover.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. Couple more things. 4th downs, Dan Quinn, keep going for it. Stay aggressive, because Jen Campbell's going to do it on the other side. Keep your best player on the field, which is Jaden Daniels. So I really want to see, because Dan Quinn surprised me this year, just how aggressive he's been, and I really liked what he gets.
The Dans.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it up. Keep going for any 4th down you think that you have even a slight edge on. Don't punt the ball. That Lions offense. Player I'm watching in this one is Bobby Wagner too. I don't know. I'm very interested in how he plays, because We talk about the Lions rushing attack. Like this is one of the older starting linebackers in the NFL going against this younger, like high powered Lions rushing attack. I don't know. I'm fascinated by that matchup to see if Bobby Wagner plays well. He played well last week. He had a fumble recovery, 8 tackles, but I don't know. It's just a matchup that stuck out to me.
Right on. So,
all right. So give us. You want me to go first? I'll go. Warrensy, I'm going Commanders plus 9.5. Fuck it. I think I there's another one that I don't love, but 9.5 is a lot of points, and I'm becoming a Jaden Daniels fan. Like I think he's.
Yeah,
I think I'm starting to really like the kid. Yeah, like he's playing so well. I think there's a chance, like I said earlier, where he has just a fantastic game, and they control the clock again. I think they make this one again. I think they put up a fight here, and there's something about a team playing with house money, that just got nothing to lose. Like the Commanders, they're not supposed to be here. Like if you were to tell me that Washington would be in the fucking divisional round in August, I would have smacked you in the face. So like there's something about that vibe to them. I don't know. I think they've got a shot here. I think they cover, and I think they've got a shot to even win this one outright. A small chance, and my prop's going to be just Terry McLaurin over 68.5 receiving yards. I said the Lions allow the most receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. I think this one's going to be a shootout. I think he's going to get 12 to 15 targets in that range. 68.5 is a little low for me. I think McLaurin has a nice day.
Yeah, I like that spread. I like that prop. For the spread, I bet the Lions 17 times this year. I did. They went 12-5 versus spread this year. They were the number 1 team against the spread in the NFL this year at 12-5. I'm just doing it again. I do think the back door is absolutely in play here. There's a really, really realistic possibility of the Commanders backdooring this and Lions not covering, but I've rode the Lions all year. It's not going to stop now. I'm going to take them minus. Sorry, is it 9.5?
It's now? 9.5 now. It's 9.5.
It is 9. Wow, it is 9.5. I'm gonna ride with my Lions. This probably, though, to be honest, of the 4 spreads, I would probably put this as my 4th in terms of confidence. So going that, my prop. You brought up the explosive runs of the Lions. This one has a lot of juice. It's minus 140. Gibbs' longest run over 18.5. I think I like that a lot if you're doing same game parlays. Add that one in there. But if you're a singles type of bettor, I like Jaden Daniels over 54.5 rush yards. I think it's a safe bet. I think he's going to have to run if they're going to have success. So give me Daniels over 54.5. And if you're sprinkling on same game parlay, I think it's safe to add Gibbs over 18.5 as his longest rush of the game.
All right. I like it. That's the first 2 Saturday games. Warrington now back on their side, finishing up with the Sunday games.
The Double Doink podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life is hard. It's especially hard when you don't have someone you can open up to. Not everyone is comfortable talking to their friends and family about their personal matters or anything that is bothering them on a day-to-day basis. Mental health is so important to continued success in this world. Therapy is a great way to regroup and get everything off your chest. Insert BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy service, 100% online. They will match you with professional licensed therapists you can trust. You can talk with your therapist however you see fit, via text, phone call, or video chat. BetterHelp has successfully helped over 4 million people worldwide deal with their day-to-day mental health issues. Use the link in the podcast description to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.
And we're back on the Double Doink podcast, finishing up the divisional round. Let's head to the link. The Eagles are 6.5 point favorites. The Los Angeles Rams totals at 44.5. Warrensy, I've been trying to go to this game. I've been trying to find tickets. I wanted to make the trip to the link. I joined like 2 different raffles, like 50% raffles to donate money to leukemia research. Spent like $100 on that. I could have just like taken that $100 and saved it and bought like actual tickets. But hey, the money went to leukemia research. It's so hard to find cheap tickets. I really wanted to go to the link this week. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. I actually went and got a new passport today because of that. Like my passport expired. So I got like the express passport today. Just in case I win that raffle tomorrow. But something that no one's talking about, like I'm listening to all these preview shows today, hearing what people talking about and just seeing like the vibes around this game. Have you looked at the weather for the link in Philly?
Yep. That's going to be the theme of Sunday because the game after we're going to be talking about weather too. But I got a 40% chance of rain here.
It's supposed to snow. There's an 80% chance of snow heading into the Philly. It's supposed to start at 2:30. It is also supposed to be the coldest it's been in the Philadelphia area in the last 2.5 years. So you got a Cali team on short notice heading to the coldest place the coldest has ever been in Philly. So keep your mind on that when you're betting this game. Outside of the weather, Warrensy loves a weather game. Warrensy, take us away from the weather and what you got.
Let's start with the Eagles offense. Last week, Hurts started a little bit slow. He had some rust to shake off, right? He had been down a couple of weeks off the concussions, so
they didn't complete a pass for 2 quarters. There was a 2-quarter stretch where they didn't complete a forward pass.
I think looking back on it, that was to be expected, though, right? And I don't expect him to be rusty here coming into this game, so I'm not worried about Hurts and the early struggles last week. But does he even need to throw the ball? These teams played earlier this year, and Saquon had arguably the best game a running back had this season, running for 255 yards.
Yeah. That's an average of 9.8 yards a pop, and he also had 2 touchdowns. I saw like someone on Twitter from a Rams fan going, if you take away the 2 big runs, like it's like you can't take away the 2 big runs. Like that is part of the thing. That's part of what makes Saquon good. Like I hate when people do that. I hate when they're like, take away the 1 big play. Like that's part of football. Like
and
just to the
also
Eagles.
Just a note in there too, Hurts had, I think, 58 yards himself rushing in that game. So it was 300 yards rushing for the Birds in that first matchup. Rams have improved versus the run since then. But still, this offensive line is such a different matchup than what the Rams saw last week. We saw the Rams really, really rattled Sam Darnold. I think he just got sacked for the 10th time.
Do you know how many pressures the Rams D-line had in that game against the Vikings? How many? Can you take a guess? I want you to take
17.
A guess. No. 44 combined pressures the Rams had on Sam Darnold in that game.
That's every snap.
and wrap your head around this. The Packers had 9. So in the same against the Eagles last week. So in the same 60-minute stretch, the Packers had 9 pressures on the Birds. The Rams had 44 on the Vikings. Like
how many dropbacks did Darnold have?
Well, because you can have multiple pressures on one play, right? At the same time.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But still, 44 is an insane number.
Absurd.
So when the Eagles played the Rams.
That's that's more than Lane Johnson's allowed in his career.
Yeah, literally. It was like that was a tough watch for Vikings fans, but that was recipe for success last week for the Rams. They got after Sam Darnold. They caused havoc. 6 sacks in the first half. It was the most sacks in a playoff game in NFL history. Sam Darnold's 82 sack yards lost was the most in a game in the last decade. Like the young Rams defensive line just took over. But like I just brought up, the Eagles allowed 9 pressures combined last week to the Packers. It was like kind of like a non-factor. The Packers did a really good job in coverage, but at the same time, like they weren't allowing any pressure on the back end. And the last time these two teams played, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata ate those young guys up on the side. So like this matchup, I think is going to dictate the game. It's going to be Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata versus Jared Verse, Byron Young, and those guys on the Rams. Like that is going to be the key to this game, in my opinion.
And I think the Rams defensive front has a really bright future, but I definitely lean on this side of the ball, the Eagles having offensive success just because of that offensive line.
Yeah, and the Eagles last week, the passing attack, they were the only team in the playoffs in the last 10 years to win a playoff game with a passing success rate under 40, which is rough. But at the exact same time, I do think they played almost to run the ball and not turn the ball over last week. Like they saw something in the Green Bay offense where they just thought the defense could dominate. When I was watching the All-22 film of it, I don't think Jalen Hurts played that bad last week. I thought there wasn't a lot open. And I think you're going to see like an uptick in kind of the aggressiveness against the Rams in the passing attack, because this Ram offense is explosive. It's a lot more explosive than the Packers offense. Like they're like, even last, I know the stats were a little bit inflated, but in the box score of that Eagles Rams game, like Puka finished with 117 yards, Kupp finished with 60. A lot of it was on the last drive, but still, it was a tight game. Like midway through the third, then the Eagles just took over. So the Rams offense, when they were able to get time and throw the ball, they were able to do stuff. But the Eagles D-line destroyed that game as well. A lot of it was Brandon Graham was not going to be in this game, but Nolan Smith had a good game as well. Jalen Carter had a good game. Milton Williams was awesome in that Rams game. The Rams offensive line against the Eagles defensive line too. Like, I think it's going to be one of the trenches, and the Eagles have the best trenches in the NFL, arguably.
It's true. And last week, we were on, we talked about how good Stafford is versus the blitz. He's one of the best quarterbacks of the last decade against the blitz. And it came true. He was 15 for 18 for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns last week versus the blitz. Vikings blitz the most in the NFL. The Eagles blitz the fifth least. Yeah, it's fewest or least. Fifth least in the NFL. So
tomato.
You're kind of taking away one of Stafford's greatest attributes just by not blitzing. And Eagles are going to just rush their 4, maybe 5, but I don't think that's going to work in the Rams' favor.
And something that caught my eye too is Eagles played a lot more man coverage than they used to, than they do on the season average against the Rams last time. Now, a lot of that could have been just towards the end of the game. On that, like, there was a lot of garbage time nonsense in that Eagles-Rams game, so some stats were hard to kind of figure out. But the Eagles have the cornerbacks to kind of match up. Like, Quinyon Mitchell was awesome against the Packers. He had that one kind of pass interference penalty that put the Packers in the red zone. But, like, outside of that, he was great. And Cooper DeJean has been playing so well. I hate how I'm talking. Like, I'm so confident in the Eagles, but I don't know. Like, we saw this game play out already. Like, I don't know. I know the Rams defense has been playing well as of late, but they haven't seen, like, the Eagles are a different animal. The Eagles defense is a different animal, especially in this weather. I'll just give my pick. I'm going to take the Eagles -6.5. I really do think that a Rams team from the state of California heading on the road on 6 days notice into the link here in a mid-January game when it's going to be freezing cold, there's going to be some weather. Like, I think this is like sets up so nicely for Philadelphia right now.
Yep, I completely agree. This is probably my favorite spread pick of the week. I'm on your Birds -6.5.
Quickly, AJ Brown reading on the sidelines. You got a take?
I don't really have a take. He's a wide receiver. Just let him be.
What if he was reading Catcher in the Rye on the sidelines? Would that have been different?
I don't know, but maybe not. I didn't know that there was snow in the forecast because I thought rain was only going to be about 40% and not a heavy impact, because my prop for this game was going to be AJ Brown over 70.5. It just feels like anytime AJ Brown's in the news, earlier in the year, the following week after there was that reported gripe that Brown had with the offense, they force-fed him and he went way over his number. Yeah. So I'm going with AJ Brown over 70.5. It just feels like when he's talked about a lot the week leading up to it, they force-feed him the ball. And watching that game last week, the Rams-Vikings, Darnold was under pressure a lot, but there were receivers open, and Darnold just held onto the ball for an eternity. So Hurts, I think he's better at anticipating throws, especially when it's with AJ Brown. So I know the weather might scare some people off, but I'm going to be on AJ Brown 70.5 receiving yards.
He had 109 yards against the Rams in the first game. It was AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley were the main two guys, of course. But yeah, we'll never go wrong with betting AJ Brown over. Mine's Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown -115. Just, I think it's still sitting at that nice odds. He had 14 rushing touchdowns this year. Like, -115 odds for it. I think the tush push will be there. It didn't happen last week. The Eagles only did one tush push the entire game. I like the fake tush push. Did you like that play? Was awesome. It just missed AJ Brown. It looked like AJ Brown was a little slow getting out of the break.
It was huge for my under 9.5 Hurts rushing attempts.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah. So I like Jalen Hurts to score touchdown -115. I'm on the Eagles. All right. Let's finish it off. Game of the week. Maybe game of the year. Like, this is awesome.
I'm more excited for this game than the Super Bowl. I'll say it.
Yeah. Both these teams are both two of the top 4 DVOA teams, so two of the better teams in the NFL seeing each other in the divisional round. It's also the closest spread we have in the week by a mile, 1.5. This game's been fluctuating all week. Did the Bills open as favorites in this one? Have you been following the spread?
I
Like,
thought Raven, or who's favored right now?
The Ravens are 1.5 point favorites right now. I thought the Bills opened as one.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Bills opened as favorite, but a move through 0 isn't a very, like, what's the word? A meaningful move, I guess. It's not like a spread going from 2.5 to 3.5, but money came in on the Ravens early.
Weather. Do you have a weather report for this one? I know you talked about it earlier.
I have 47% chance of snow and 9 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't have my calculator out with me, but for our Canadian listeners, I'm going to say that's about minus 12 or so. Then you mix in that wind that's always coming off the lake there. That's why also weather reports and Buffalo games are.
They have
really
their own weather,
predict.
right? They have their own weather system at Highmark.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. It's hard to kind of calculate. But yeah,
So
it's gonna be cold.
Either way,
weather.
It's gonna be cold.
Yeah, and I think that leads into kind of. I know this is really a boring like analysis of the game. I was trying to figure out another way to do it because there's 2 MVP quarterbacks in this game. Like there's 2 of the best players in the NFL. But I really do think it's going to come down to can the Bills stop the run? Can the Bills slow down Derrick Henry? And I know it's
Derrick
like,
Henry ran for 199
in
game 1 of this matchup, and I don't think he played the fourth quarter.
No, and he had that 87-yard run that basically
first play.
That just blew the doors off the game. So the Buffalo, we talked about it last week, where the Buffalo Bills run, like we said, if the Broncos are going to have any chance of winning this game, they're going to have to run up the interior of the Bills. The Bills' defensive interior is their weakest link on the team, and Derrick Henry matches up very well against that. The Bills are 27th in run defense grade according to PFF, 30th in interior run stops. So this is a really hard matchup for them. Like they're going to have to find ways to get Derrick Henry on the fucking ground, Warnsey.
Yeah, the Bills, their base defense is nickel. They love getting an extra defensive back on the field. Big reason why they do that so much is because they arguably have the best slot corner in the NFL in Teron Johnson. But you can't play nickel against Derrick Henry. Like that is literally suicide to play nickel against Derrick Henry. If you're going to ask Teron Johnson to come into the box and tackle Derrick Henry 7 to 10 times, it's not a recipe for success. And I know Bills fans have loved bringing up this week that Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard did not play in the week 1 matchup.
Teron Johnson didn't play.
And Teron Johnson. Yeah. Bernard and Milano are so bad. Like PFF has Milano ranked 161st at linebacker this year and Bernard at 165th. For reference, there's 180 linebackers graded this season. They are bottom 20.
Milano ain't
the
the same player anymore. He's not.
No, he is a shell of himself.
He played well against Denver last week. I'll give him credit, but you're right. Yeah, I think the name recognition is different.
The difference in Denver and Baltimore is Baltimore has 2 tight ends that he has to worry about. You can't cheat and just cheat on Derrick Henry because then if they're running 12 personnel, which I expect a ton of, Andrews and Likely are going to be running downfield wide open all game. I truly do just think this Ravens offense is the worst possible matchup for this Bills defense. With that being said, though, I do respect Sean McDermott as a defensive mind. He has to come up with something here. He has to run a defense they haven't run all year to even have a chance here. Will he do it? It's really hard in the divisional round to just play a completely different style of defense. But if he comes out and just starts in nickel, Derrick Henry is going to run for an 87-yard touchdown off the bat once again.
Yeah, when you look at the Bills' had success this year, it's when they get the run game going. Like if you take a look in the Lions game, James Cook ran for 105 yards. It's just like that's when they're at their best, when James Cook is having a good day. And in that Ravens game, they couldn't get anything going off the ground. Like James Cook had 9 carries for 39 yards in that one. Like that was it. When Josh Allen does need to go hero mode this season, it hasn't worked out. Like they're gonna have to run the ball better than the team that has Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson to win this game. And I'm not confident in it. Any other like matchup? Because I really do think that's the big one. Like, can the Bills stop Derrick Henry? Like that's where the game is going to be won and lost.
completely. It's the only matchup that matters. I mean, wide receiver wise, Zay Flowers is still listed as questionable.
Doesn't look like he's going to
practice
play.
in?
He did not. He didn't get practice on Wednesday. Ian Rappaport said it doesn't look good for him to play this week, so I would expect him to be out, and that's a big loss. But if you look at the last team these two played, Zay Flowers had 1 catch for 10 yards. He was not needed. So
right. Yeah, and Bills wide receivers, Khalil Shakir is really emerging. He is absolutely a weapon. But the weather just might impact how much you can really even throw the ball. And since the Ravens made the adjustment of moving Kyle Hamilton back to safety, we talked about it last week, their defense has really clicked. So it's going to be a battle of the trenches. It's going to be who can run the ball better. And sorry, Bills Mafia, I'm going with Derrick Henry. I'm going with the Ravens.
Yeah. The Bills were my Super Bowl pick this season. I had them beating the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl. One of those teams is already out. But I went into this playoffs thinking that the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the NFL right now. And I think their Super Bowl road was very hard. Like, you have to go through Buffalo and the Chiefs. But I do think that the Ravens, just analytically and stat-wise, are the best team in the NFL. I also think Buffalo's defense is severely overrated this year. If you take a look, the Bills have played 2 teams in the top 5 in DVOA and offense this season. They gave up 35-plus points to both. Buffalo's defense played the 9th easiest schedule in the NFL. We saw this team give up 35 points to the Ravens last time these two teams played. The Baltimore Ravens offense, first in EPA, first in EP per pass, first in EP per rush, third in success rate, third in points per game. Baltimore Ravens defense we talked about this last week, since week 11, first in total EPA, first in EP per pass, first in yards per play, first in points against. This is a very good fucking football team, and I think the Ravens are going to win it. I hate to say it. I love Bills Mafia, love you guys, but I'm on Baltimore this week -1.5.
It's such a shame that whoever loses this game, the quarterback's just going to be talked about negatively no matter what. It's such a shame that these two teams have to play each other, but that's the advantage of the Chiefs getting the bye. And one of these quarterbacks is going to be labeled as they can't get it done, even though they could score 30 points and lose this game, and we're still going to say, oh, that quarterback just can't get over the hump.
The Ravens also allow the 5th fewest rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks in the league. Like, Josh Allen's they're very good at stopping scrambling quarterbacks. Josh Allen is not. I don't think he's going to have a lot of success on the ground. So I think this matchup just screams Baltimore Wednesday, and I think we're both on the same page.
I'm with you.
All right,
Ravens.
Prop. I love this one. This is probably my favorite prop. Justice Hill over 22.5 receiving yards.
Yeah.
The Bills allowed them.
I was looking at even laddering him 20, 30, 40 receiving yards.
The Bills allow the most receiving yards to opposing running backs in the NFL. We talked about their linebacker core. We talked about they kind of struggle in that area. And he had 78 yards receiving in that last game these two teams played. He led Baltimore receiving in that one. I think Justice Hill is going to have a lot of touches through the passing game. I think they're going to do the screen game a lot. I think he's going to be very active, and 22 is a low number.
I like that. I also am attacking the poor linebacker play of Buffalo. I brought up that I expect the Ravens to be running 12 personnel a ton. So I'm going to go Isaiah Likely over 34.5 receiving yards. Couldn't decide between him and Andrews because I also really like Andrews 39.5. I'm going to lock that in now because I think if Zay Flowers is ruled out, that might tick up a little bit. But if Flowers is out, I'll probably actually go with Andrews more because he'll be option number 1 in the passing game. If Flowers is in, that might make me Likely at a lower number a little bit better because he'll get less attention. And either way, just attack these Bills linebackers. I think both tight ends are safe. Sprinkling on Andrews touchdown plus 120 as well.
We're in a friend group with 5 Bills fans. Are we?
I can't wait to see them cry.
Are we going to be openly say we're on the Ravens? The thing is
I'm going to be trolling so hard.
You're not Bills Mafia. You're not one of those Toronto boys that loves the Bills.
Well, all 5 of those Bills fans weren't fans when it was
Trent Edwards.
What? Trent Edwards, JP Losman. Who was the other guy? EJ Manuel. Yeah. Oh,
they didn't go through
these guys hopped on the bandwagon, and I hope it comes crashing and burning down.
All right, or that was good. Why don't we recap our picks quickly here? I'm on the Chiefs -8.5. CJ Stroud over rushing yards. I'm on the Washington Commanders +9.5. Terry McLaurin over receiving yards. Philadelphia Eagles -6.5. Jalen Hurts touchdown. Baltimore Ravens -1.5. And Justice Hill over 22.5 receiving yards.
I like it. I am on the Texans +8.5. Schultze over 34.5 receiving yards. I'm on the Lions -9.5. Jaden Daniels over 54.5 rush yards. The Birds, Philadelphia Eagles -6.5 with AJ Brown over 70.5 receiving yards. And then give me the Ravens -1.5 and Isaiah Likely over 34.5 receiving yards.
All right, that was fun. That was it. That was previewing the divisional round. Thanks so much for tuning in. Yeah. Really appreciate it. You got anything else?
No, last week was such bad games. We're guaranteed this week is going to be 4 good games.
Sunday's games are awesome. I can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah, Saturday's the appetizer, then Sunday's the main course.
All right. Well, Warrensy, I'll see. We're going to watch on Saturday. I hope I see you on Saturday. Watch some games. Looking forward to it.
You know it.
Appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit the YouTube subscribe. Like and subscribe wherever you listen to your audio podcast. Warrensy and I will be back for the championship games, and we will talk to you later.